The renowned Dr. Enrique Azevedo is a heart surgeon at São Lucas Hospital, one of the most prestigious in the city. His life turns upside down when he decides to save the life of a homeless woman, Maria, who arrives at the hospital in critical condition. This selfless decision, however, triggers a series of events that no one could foresee, revealing secrets that were buried in the depths of the city's past. Dr. Enrique Azevedo was at the peak of his career. Respected by his colleagues and loved by his patients, he stood out as one of the best heart surgeons in the country. His dedication and skill had saved countless lives, and he deeply believed in the ethics and oath of his profession. It was an especially busy night at São Lucas Hospital. Enrique was reviewing charts in his office when he heard hurried footsteps and murmurs coming from the hallway. Curious, he went to see what was happening. "Emergency! We need help here!" shouted a paramedic, pushing a stretcher with an unconscious woman. She was pale, covered in dirt and wounds, clearly homeless. Enrique's eyes narrowed as he saw the severity of the situation. "What happened to her?" Enrique asked the paramedic. "Cardiac arrest. We found her unconscious on the street," replied the paramedic, breathing heavily. Before Enrique could give any instructions, the head nurse, Ana, approached with a worried look. "Dr. Enrique, you know the rules. We can't treat indigents without insurance or means of payment." Enrique looked at Ana, then at the woman on the stretcher, and made his decision. "Prepare the operating room immediately," he ordered, ignoring the protocol. "But, doctor, the administration—" "I said prepare the operating room, Ana," Enrique interrupted, his voice firm. "If she doesn't get help now, she'll die." Ana hesitated for a moment, but the determination in Enrique's eyes made her nod. "Yes, doctor," she replied, rushing to organize the team. As the medical team prepared everything, Dr. Otavio Rocha, the administrative director, appeared, his expression a mix of frustration and anger. "Enrique, can I talk to you for a moment?" Enrique turned to him, already knowing what was coming. "I don't have time now, Otavio. I have a life to save." "You know we can't afford these costs," Otavio said, trying to keep his voice low but clearly indignant. "You're putting the hospital at risk. If she dies, Otavio, it'll be because we abandoned her." "I can't allow that," Enrique replied, his eyes fixed on the director. "If you want to punish me for doing my job, do it later. Right now, I need to save this woman." Otavio snorted, realizing it was useless to argue. "Consequences will come, Enrique," he warned before leaving the doctor to perform the surgery. Hours later, Enrique emerged from the operating room, exhausted but relieved. Maria was stable, her heart beating regularly. Enrique sat beside her as she began to wake up. "You're at São Lucas Hospital," he said gently.
"I'm Dr. Enrique."
"We performed surgery to save your life." Maria slowly opened her eyes, still disoriented. "Thank you. I don't remember much," she murmured weakly. "It's okay. The important thing is that you're alive," Enrique replied with a comforting smile. That night, Enrique knew his decision would have repercussions, but he couldn't imagine the series of events it would unleash. He had defied the administration's orders and, in doing so, opened the door to a series of revelations that would bring to light secrets long buried in the depths of the city's past. Enrique's act of kindness did not go unnoticed by the hospital's administration. The morning after the surgery, Dr. Otavio Rocha called an emergency meeting in the boardroom. Enrique entered the room, aware of what was coming, but determined to defend his actions. "Enrique, have a seat," Otavio said, pointing to the chair in front of his desk. The administrative director was visibly annoyed, his forehead furrowed and his eyes stern. "We need to talk about your conduct last night." "I know, Otavio," Enrique began, trying to stay calm. "I saved a life. I know I broke the rules, but I couldn't let that woman die." "You understand that the hospital has policies for a reason," Otavio interrupted, his voice full of indignation. "We can't afford to treat patients who can't pay. You put São Lucas's financial viability at risk." Enrique took a deep breath, preparing for what would come next. Otavio, I'm a doctor. I took an oath to save lives, not to do financial accounting. If we can't help the most needy, what's the point of being here? Otavio shook his head, disapproving. This is unacceptable. I spoke to the board this morning, and everyone agrees that we need to take a firm stance. Enrique, you're fired for violating hospital rules. The shock of the statement was like a punch in Enrique's stomach. You're firing me for doing my job? For following medical ethics? It's not just about ethics, Enrique. It's about keeping the hospital running, Otavio replied, relentless. Hand in your badge and your keys. You're no longer an employee of São Lucas. Enrique stood up, trying to hide his frustration and disappointment. If this is the price for doing what's right, then I accept it. But know that I don't regret what I did. As he left the office, Enrique felt the weight of his new reality settle on his shoulders. He was unemployed and, inevitably, would be vilified in the medical community. His colleagues and friends avoided looking him in the eye as he gathered his things. That night, sitting alone in his now empty office, Enrique began to question the values he had always defended. He had dedicated his life to medicine, believing that his duty was to protect and care for all human beings, regardless of their. Enrique carefully noted everything down. This is a start. Let's find out what these memories mean. Determined to help Maria recover her identity, Enrique began investigating her past. First, he took Maria to various areas of the city, hoping something would trigger her memory. They visited parks, busy avenues, and old neighborhoods. Does this place look familiar? Enrique asked as they walked through an old square. Maria looked around but shook her head. Nothing. It's like I'm seeing everything for the first time. Not letting himself be discouraged, Enrique decided to search for clues in public records. He spent hours in libraries and government offices, looking for unsolved disappearances or records of people that matched Maria's description. One day, while flipping through old newspapers in a library, Enrique found an article about the mysterious disappearance of a woman named Mariana Ferreira, the wife of an influential politician in the city who had vanished a few years ago. The photo in the article showed a woman who closely resembled Maria. Mariana Ferreira, could it be you? Enrique murmured to himself, feeling a mix of hope and anxiety. That night, he showed the article to Maria. Maria, look at this. This woman disappeared a few years ago. She looks a lot like you. Your real name might be Mariana Ferreira. Maria looked at the photo in the newspaper, her eyes widening. I don't know. It looks like me, but I can't remember. We'll find this answer together, said Enrique, firmly holding her hand. I'll contact the authorities and see what we can find out. Enrique didn't rest. He sought information about Mariana's life, her husband, Augusto Ferreira, and the events leading up to her disappearance. Each discovery brought more questions, but also more hope that he was on the right track. Over time, small fragments of memory began to return to Maria. I remember a big party, many people, and Augusto. He was always by my side, she said one day, tears in her eyes. We're getting there, said Enrique, feeling that the truth was finally within reach. We'll find out what happened to you, Maria, or rather, Mariana. As Enrique delved deeper into the investigation, he realized he was about to unearth dangerous secrets that could change everything, not just for Maria but for the whole city. But he was determined. Whatever it took, he would help Maria reclaim her identity and her life. As Enrique delved into Maria's life, strange details began to emerge, painting a much more complex picture than he could have imagined. Each new discovery brought forth questions that challenged the logic of her current condition. One afternoon, while having tea in the small living room, Enrique noticed something peculiar. Maria was carefully examining the packaging of the medication he had brought. You seem interested in the medications, Enrique commented, trying to sound casual. Maria looked up, hesitant. It's just that. I feel like I know these names. Like I've worked with this before. But I don't understand how. Interesting, replied Enrique, encouraging her to continue. Do you remember anything specific about them? I know that dosage is important, said Maria, frowning in concentration, and that this one, enalapril, is used to treat hypertension. But how do I know that? Enrique was impressed. You have knowledge about medicine, Maria. That's not common for someone who has lived on the streets. Later, as Maria rested, Enrique reflected on this new information. Her refined behaviors and specific knowledge didn't fit with the life of a homeless person. There was something deeper in her story. Determined to investigate further, Enrique returned to the archives. He began comparing the fragments of memory Maria had mentioned with prominent people in the city. A pattern began to form, especially with the descriptions of luxurious parties and the constant music Maria mentioned. One night, while having dinner, Enrique brought up the subject again. Maria, you mentioned parties and a constant melody. Can you remember any other detail? Anything could be important. Maria closed her eyes, trying to concentrate. There was a grand hall, shining chandeliers, and they always played the same waltz. And there was a woman. She was important. I think it was me. Enrique widened his eyes. You see yourself as someone important in these flashes? Yes, replied Maria, slowly opening her eyes. I was always well-dressed, talking to influential people, and there was a ring with an emblem, but I can't remember what it meant. Intrigued, Enrique began researching influential families and their symbols. That's when he found a clue. An old photo of Mariana Ferreira, wife of the powerful politician Augusto Ferreira. On her finger, a ring with an emblem that Maria had described. The next morning, Enrique showed the photo to Maria. Do you recognize this ring? Maria picked up the photo, her eyes widening in surprise. Yes, it's exactly the same. But how is this possible? Maria, I believe you are Mariana Ferreira, said Enrique, his voice full of hope. That would explain your knowledge and refined behavior. We need to investigate more about your life before the disappearance. Maria seemed stunned, but there was a glimmer of hope in her eyes. If it's true, why can't I remember? What happened to me? Enrique firmly held her hands. We'll find out together. We've come this far, and I won't give up now. With this new information, Enrique and Maria began to unravel the mystery of her identity. Each new discovery brought them closer to the truth, revealing a previous life of luxury, power, and hidden secrets. It was a complex puzzle, but Enrique was determined to help Maria regain her memories and, finally, the truth about her past. Enrique was sitting in his makeshift home office, surrounded by stacks of documents and old photos. He had spent sleepless nights investigating, determined to uncover the truth about Maria. That's when he found something that caught his attention. An old photo in a crumpled newspaper. In the photo, Maria stood next to a man that Enrique immediately recognized. The man was Augusto Ferreira, an influential politician in the city who had mysteriously disappeared years ago. Maria looked stunning, dressed in an elegant gala dress, and Augusto was beside her, smiling at the camera. Maria, come see this, called Enrique, his voice filled with urgency. Maria entered the room, curious. What did you find? Enrique handed her the photo. Take a look at this. Do you recognize anyone? Maria took the photo, her eyes widening in surprise. That's me, and that man. I know him. It's Augusto. He was important to me. But how is this possible? Enrique nodded. Exactly. Augusto Ferreira disappeared mysteriously years ago, and you disappeared at the same time. I think you're the key to solving this puzzle. Maria stared at the photo, trying to piece together the fragments of her fractured memory. Augusto. He was my husband, she said. With a mix of certainty and confusion, Maria felt a shiver upon hearing this. Whatever it is, I need to know. I need to remember. Enrique held her hand, determination steady. We're close to the truth, Maria. Let's keep going until we uncover it all. As they approached the truth, Enrique and Maria knew they were dealing with something much bigger than they had imagined. But they were determined to reveal what really happened on that fateful night. With each step, they were not only getting closer to the truth about Maria's past, but also to a puzzle that could change the city forever. Enrique's relentless investigation finally led him to uncover the truth behind Augusto Ferreira's disappearance. Each piece of the puzzle fit together in a dark and disturbing way, revealing a web of betrayal and conspiracy. Enrique was at a cafe, reviewing his notes, when he received a call from Roberto, Augusto's former colleague. "Enrique, I managed to access some old documents. I think you'll want to see this," Roberto said, his voice grave. Anxious, Enrique met Roberto at a discreet location. Roberto handed him a folder full of confidential documents. These documents detail Augusto's negotiations and the corruption scheme he was about to expose. He was betrayed by his own political allies. Enrique flipped through the papers, his heart racing. This explains why he disappeared. But what happened to Maria? Or rather, to Mariana?
Roberto sighed heavily.
Mariana was a secondary target. When Augusto disappeared, she knew too much. The conspirators feared she might expose everything. So, they devised a plan to silence her. Enrique felt a chill down his spine. They forced her to live on the streets, without memory, without identity.
Roberto nodded.
Yes, she was drugged and left to die. But somehow, she survived. She lost her memories, but not her life. Enrique thanked Roberto and returned to the apartment where Maria was resting. "Maria, I think I've found out everything," he said, entering quickly. Maria looked at him, eyes filled with expectation and fear. "What did you find, Enrique?" Enrique sat beside her, taking her hands. "You are Mariana Ferreira." Augusto was betrayed by his own political allies. He was about to expose a major corruption scheme, and that's why he was silenced. And you knew too much. They drugged you and left you to die, but you survived. Without memory, without identity, you ended up on the streets. Maria fell silent for a moment, absorbing Enrique's words. "So, that's why I couldn't remember anything. They wanted to silence me." Enrique nodded. "Yes, but you survived. And now, we can expose everything." With the truth finally revealed, Enrique and Maria knew the next step would be risky but necessary. They needed to take this information to the authorities and ensure that those responsible were held accountable. In the following days, Enrique and Maria gathered all the evidence and went to the police chief, presenting the case. "We have evidence of a political conspiracy and the attempted murder of Mariana Ferreira," Enrique said, handing the folder to the police chief. The police chief leafed through the documents, his face serious. "This is very serious. We'll need protection for both of you, and a full investigation will be initiated immediately." As the investigation continued, news of Mariana Ferreira's return and the political conspiracy spread throughout the city. The media covered the case intensely, and the truth began to come to light, shocking everyone. Mariana, still getting used to being called by her true name, began to recover fragments of her memory. "I remember Augusto saying that the truth would always prevail," she said to Enrique one afternoon. "And now, thanks to you, it's finally coming to light." Enrique smiled. "It was a team effort, Mariana, and it's just the beginning. Let's ensure that justice is served." Over time, those responsible for the conspiracy were arrested, and Mariana began to rebuild her life. She and Enrique, united by a journey of discovery and the fight for truth, found strength in each other to move forward. The city would never be the same again, and Mariana Ferreira's story and her fight for truth would become a symbol of resilience and justice. Enrique spent days pondering the best way to confront Dr. Otavio. He knew that the administrative director of São Lucas Hospital, being complicit in the conspiracy against Augusto, was desperate to keep his secrets hidden. The tension between the two was palpable, growing with each encounter. Finally, Enrique decided it was time to confront Otavio directly. He entered the hospital, his hands firmly holding the folder with the evidence incriminating Otavio. The cold fluorescent lights of the corridor accentuated the gravity of the situation. Arriving at Otavio's office, Enrique knocked on the door with determination. "Otavio, we need to talk. Now." Otavio looked up from his work, his expression tense. "Enrique, what are you doing here? I thought you had been fired." Enrique entered the office and closed the door behind him. "I didn't come to discuss my dismissal. I came to talk about Augusto Ferreira and Maria, or rather, Mariana Ferreira." Otavio grew visibly pale. "I don't know what you're talking about," he lied, his voice trembling slightly. Enrique tossed the folder onto Otavio's desk. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. I have evidence of your involvement in the conspiracy to silence Augusto and Mariana." Otavio quickly flipped through the documents, sweat beginning to appear on his forehead. "This is ridiculous, Enrique. You have no idea what forces you're dealing with." Enrique took a step forward, his voice firm and full of conviction. "I know you helped cover up Augusto's disappearance and the attempted murder of Mariana. And I know you're afraid that by helping Maria, I would expose everything." Otavio stood up, trying to maintain composure. "You're playing with your career and your life, Enrique. Give this up while you still can." Enrique didn't back down. "My career has already been destroyed, thanks to you. But my life? My life now has a purpose, to bring justice to Augusto and Mariana." Otavio scoffed, anger and desperation growing. "You don't understand, Enrique. There are powerful people involved. This isn't just about me." "Then you admit it," said Enrique, triumphantly. "Admit that you're involved in this." Otavio realized his mistake and tried to backtrack. "That doesn't matter. You won't be able to carry this through. They will destroy you." Enrique took the folder back, his expression determined. "We'll see. Justice will prevail, Otavio, and I'll make sure all those responsible pay for what they've done." As Enrique turned to leave, Otavio, desperate, tried one last threat. "If you continue with this, not only you, but Mariana will be in danger too." Enrique stopped at the door and looked back, his eyes full of challenge. Ricardo tried to maintain composure. "Mariana, there are things you don't understand. This goes beyond me. There are greater forces at play." "I don't care how big this conspiracy is," Mariana retorted. "You've taken everything from me. And now, we're going to fight to expose each and every one of you." Ricardo sighed, knowing he couldn't change Mariana's determination. "You won't stop, will you?" Mariana shook her head.
No.
"And if you have any sense of decency, you'll cooperate and help clean this city of corruption." In the following days, the newspaper, The Voice of Truth, began publishing a series of explosive reports about the corruption scheme, naming all those involved, including Dr. Otavio and other influential politicians. The articles caused a frenzy in the city, and public opinion quickly turned against the conspirators. Mariana and Enrique gave emotional interviews, detailing their journey and the atrocities they had uncovered. The city, outraged, began to demand justice. Finally, with public pressure and the official investigation underway, authorities began to arrest those involved. Dr. Otavio was one of the first to be taken into custody, followed by several politicians and hospital administrators. As the guilty faced justice, Mariana and Enrique felt a tremendous weight lifted off their shoulders. They had not only restored the truth, but also initiated a process of purification in a city they both loved. At a press conference, Mariana looked out at the crowd of reporters and said firmly, "This is not just our victory. It's the victory of the whole city against corruption and injustice. The truth has prevailed, and we will continue to fight to ensure it always does." By her side, Enrique smiled, knowing that together, they had turned tragedy into a powerful force for good. And so, with the city undergoing renewal, they looked to the future with renewed hope and determination. With the newly recovered memory echoing in her mind, every detail unfolded in her consciousness like a meticulously assembled puzzle. Mariana felt the weight of truth. The veil finally lifted on Augusto's enigmatic disappearance. Burning determination filled her being, a flame fueled by justice clamoring for action. By her side, Enrique, a loyal and unwavering force, shared her burden and her purpose. Together, they devised meticulous strategies to unravel the corrupt tentacles that had rooted in the city and the hospital itself. Each outlined plan was a step toward the light, a blow against the darkness that had obscured their lives for too long. Determined to rise from the ashes of the past, Mariana glimpses a new horizon, where the golden rays of hope pierce the dark clouds of pain. In every step forward, she carries not only her own resolution but also Augusto's legacy, a beacon of inspiration that illuminates her uncertain path. Meanwhile, Enrique receives the call to return to the hospital he once knew so well, now enveloped in a mantle of change. His acceptance is marked by unwavering commitment, a dedication to the humanity he values so much. It is not just a return to his professional domain, but rather an opportunity to reshape the once cruel policies, a mission he embraces with fervor and determination. In the shadow of the towering towers of São Lucas Hospital, a silent transformation comes to life, like the metamorphosis of a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. There, at the pulsating heart of the city, stands a bastion of hope and compassion. Its doors now open not only to the privileged but to all in need, regardless of their origin or social condition. Within these walls, the spirit of Enrique and Mariana lives in every corridor and in every healed soul, a tangible testimony to the union of their forces and the determination to promote justice and altruism. Together, they tread a path paved with the bricks of integrity and empathy, leaving behind a legacy that will inspire future generations to embrace a new era of kindness and honesty in the city. In the dimness of the office, the revelation hovered like a dense fog, obscuring the world around. Enrique, stunned, fixed his eyes on Mariana, as if seeking in the depths of her gaze confirmation that this was nothing but a terrible mistake. "How? I'm your lost son?" Enrique asked, his voice echoing through the space, laden with a mixture of disbelief and shock. Mariana nodded with a heavy sigh, her eyes reflecting decades of secrets kept in silence. "Yes, Enrique, you are our son, the son who was taken from us by the same ones who ruined our lives." Enrique felt a knot tighten in his throat, a torrent of conflicting emotions threatening to flood his mind. He approached Mariana, words failing on his tongue as he sought comfort in the familiarity of her embrace. I can't believe all this. It's always been so close and I never knew," Enrique murmured, his words breaking into anguished sobs. Mariana gently caressed Enrique's face, an expression of determination replacing the sadness in her eyes. "Now we know, Enrique, and together, we'll overcome this. We're a family, united by destiny and the fight for justice." An indissoluble bond formed in that moment of revelation, uniting Enrique and Mariana in a journey of rediscovery and renewal. Together, mother and son were ready to face the challenges the future held, armed with the strength of their connection and the shared purpose of righting the injustices they had suffered. If this were to happen to me in real life, I would likely feel a mix of shock, disbelief, and curiosity. Discovering such a profound truth about one's identity and history would undoubtedly be a life-altering experience. I would seek support from loved ones and professionals to navigate the emotional and practical aspects of processing this newfound information. Reflecting on the resilience and determination demonstrated by Mariana and Enrique, I would be inspired to confront the challenges head-on, just as they did. Their story underscores the importance of seeking truth, seeking justice, and finding strength in the face of adversity. If you've ever experienced a similar revelation or faced a significant challenge in your life, I invite you to share your story. Whether it's through commenting, subscribing, or reaching out, let's continue to support each other on our journeys of discovery and transformation.